Nice.
One more day here in Golden Era Boxing, giving the best interviews. And we have a special guest from Canada, Chen Thonson, a really good prospect from Canada who is right now, you got 16 fights and 13
Yeah.
KOs, right?
Yeah.
So undefeated. You rank number 7 in the WBA. Is that correct?
Yes. That's right.
Um, so tell me a little bit about how you started boxing and just, and I have additional questions to that, but how did you start boxing? I know you have a brother called Trevor too. What's
Yes.
going on? Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, my name is Chan Thonson. I started boxing at the age of 19 actually. Before that I was doing like I did a little bit of taekwondo and just maybe like 18 kind of well, actually no, early 19 I was doing jiu-jitsu while I was training in boxing before my first fight, and I actually had some jiu-jitsu matches before boxing. I've always loved, the art of fighting and combat sports um as like a whole. Like Bruce Lee was a big idol of mine when I was younger, and originally I wanted to go into like the UFC and beat the heavyweights, to show that it isn't size doesn't matter in an actual fight. But so I did jiu-jitsu, and then I said, okay, I'll do boxing for like 2 years, master it in 2 years, and then you know change another art. But after I had my first boxing match, I realized that like boxing was it was so thrilling, and I had so much to learn. And God kind of showed me throughout in that moment that how I will make my way will be through like the platform of boxing. So I just ended up sticking with it, and now here I am.
What was the why did you make the switch between boxing and jiu-jitsu? What was the switch that made you go through
Well,
boxing and not jiu-jitsu?
because actually, because so when I first had my first jiu-jitsu match, um, it was like in a jiu-jitsu gym, and it was pretty much like 98% of the people were other fighters as well, other jiu-jitsu, fighters as well. And maybe like I think I had a few of my family members there, and then that was it. And it was kind of dull, more than like the actual show or the how the combat was set up. And then when I had my first boxing match, it was in the gym as well, and all like the gym looked different. All the bags were downs, all the bag were down. There was seats lined up, and I had a lot more people show up. And then I remember how much more exhilarating it was, like so I remember the next morning when I rewatched my first fight, my mom was like, Chan, like, jiu-jitsu is cool and all, but boxing, like everyone was engaged, when I was fighting, my first fight. So it's something that I'll never forget. And um it, like I said, it's one of the reasons, the motivating reasons that helped me decide to stay in boxing.
I seen your style of boxing, and you have you're very crafty. You like have a very uh, uh, Canadian style of boxing tends to be a lot of pressure.
More
Historically,
punchers.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. How did you develop that style?
Uh,
Because you're in Quebec and they show the other style. That's the pressure. Ivan Durrell sort of
yeah.
pressure fight. How did you learn that there?
It's weird. I have to honestly just give it to God and say God has blessed me, and that's how I knew that even though I, let's say, started late at 19, I had all the attributes to do it. I just needed to hone what was already in me. I remember having my first sparring match, and that was weird because when I went into it, like I was just like me growing up. It's like when people are fighting in the streets, it's like there's emotional anger or emotional factors behind the fight. So I get into the ring, the sparring match, and I'm like, what? I just start punching him in his face, like I'm like, are you sure? Like, and then the guy, it's weird. He was heavy. He was 200 pounds, but he was my height. So he was like, and he had experience. So he was like, come. So I started hitting him. And then when he hit me back, I was like, whoa, and then right away, like all of those raw abilities with my feet and, moving out the way started to kick in.
Okay.
it just it just came out of me, and then as I started to hone the skills and the abilities, started to refine them, is what you're seeing now, more refined.
Canada has a very unique style of a school of boxing too. How do you see the school of boxing in Canada as compared with other countries? Because they have a long history of having really good fighters.
Um, you're saying Canada has a history of great fighters?
Yes.
Yes, they do, and I feel like personally, a lot of that knowledge in the teaching of you know the science of boxing has kind of died out.
Hmm.
Which has led them to more to having punches. I feel like sometimes, um, this is generally speaking, coaches could hide behind a puncher, their coaching ability behind punchers, because when you have a guy who's knocking everyone out and you're in the corner as a coach, it looks like, yo, like, I'm teaching him, but it's just like, what I mean? It's like, what are you really teaching him? Like, I'm not saying that no punch is a lucky punch, but I'm saying, hey, if he could punch, he could punch. You know what I'm saying? You don't really, um, unless you're talking about a guy who necessarily couldn't punch, and through the teaching of the science and the body mechanism, he learned how to punch the best he could and became a puncher. Okay, that's different. But a lot of fighters today in Canada are punchers. It's not. I feel like the art of boxing and teaching boxing is a little bit lost in the country. So
Yeah.
as far as going, if I have to compare the two, that's what I would say the difference is. In America, you see guys who could punch, right? But even though they could punch, it's like they have decent fund. The guys who are punchers, they still have very decent, basic fundamentals of boxing. It's like he can punch, but like normally, like when I came to America, seeing guys who could punch, it's like with my style, I'm like, okay, like I'm not too worried about it because I can get around a guy who's just looking to punch. But the thing is, what's trickier is when I'm fighting a guy, he's like out here, he's punching, but he's following the principles of boxing,
Hmm.
which is making me have to work a little bit more to stay two steps ahead of him with my skill. You know what I mean? And then you have the guys out here as well who have there's a lot of guys like with not exact styles, but like the slick style of boxing, and the more of the art towards it. There's a lot of guys out here like that are like that too. So it's a big bag of trail mix. America, Canada's like maybe almonds and cashews.
I got you. So you do got sparring. So you're saying you do got sparring that is from Canada, who has a similar style that the one that you actually train, and that helps you develop other skills. Correct? Is this
the,
is
the
this
closest that I've been, there's a young fighter named Joseph Brown.
okay?
He's signed with Mayweather Promotions. He's actually the only fighter I would say in Canada that I've been in the ring with that it's like we have very similar styles,
Hmm.
and not just because a lot of guys like they could do this, they could try to do things, but I'm talking about like naturally and instinctively move like the way that we move, on top of the knowledge and the practice and the repetitions. That young kid is the one kid that I've worked with who, when we it's like really iron sharpening iron in terms of boxing, with that type of technique. Like he's quick, he's twitchy, he's methodical in his mind, and he's putting everything behind the fundamentals and the skill of boxing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that's good. So you're ranked number 7. You're really not talked to. I mean, you're really not talked about a lot, but I've seen a couple of your fights, and
Yeah.
you seem pretty dangerous.
Thank
Um,
you.
you seem like I don't think nobody's going to call you out in this day and age with your style. How do you? First of all, I would say, who would you like to fight in the position you're in right now? You're number 7.
Honestly, Frank Martin was a guy that I was like we were looking at,
Okay.
me and my team. He's someone that I would want to fight. Um, I gotta look back at the list to see who's up there again. You know what I mean? Ultimately, the goal is Tank because Tank has the WBA belt.
Okay.
So it's to become world champion. So realistically, anyone in the top 5 or 6 above me, if that's going to put me in the position to fight for the world title. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't really matter to me to have to fight any one of those guys. especially with the stage that I'm at in my career, and how I'm feeling with confident with myself and all the abilities and the way I'm training and progressing. You know, I feel confident enough to beat any single one of them.
Okay, so you said Frank Martin. So did you try to reach Frank Martin, or did you try to have any negotiations with him to make that
Um,
fight? Or
as we were in the talks, me and my promoter were talking about that.
okay.
I think like 3 days after it was announced he was fighting Tank, so it kind
Mm,
of it's like we were cut before the trigger could even get pulled to make those negotiations or to have that into the talks. It was cut short. You know what I mean? For us to even try to have that conversation. So we're just I think I should be fighting on April 20th, and that will probably be maybe it might not be a name or anything like that, but maybe a tough opponent enough to continue to keep me sharp and active and fresh and give me the push that I need.
okay.
Yeah.
So on top of you, I think it's Jose Valenzuela, right? I think Jose Valenzuela
Oh
is coming.
yes, yes, him too.
Would you fight Jose Valenzuela, Rayo? He had a good victory against what
He
you call it?
he fought what's the name?
Yeah,
Uh, that guy
Chris
he
Colbert.
rematched.
Chris
Chris
Colbert.
Colbert. Yes, yes. Yeah, I would fight him actually. I would.
Okay.
Yeah, he'd be a nice, interesting fight too. I feel like he's a little bit wide, in his punches, but he's effective in what he does. And at the same time, too, it's outside looking in, but I feel like he's just a little bit wide with his
Okay.
shots.
So that will be a fight that you're interested in really doing against Jose Valenzuela.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I want to make a little small clip here, and I want to make sure
I,
that you get the
I mean,
attention.
hey, it's the job of the boxing reporters and the boxing fans to do this. You know what I mean? And to help. This is what helps boxing as a whole. You know what I mean? It's everyone, it's the fighters that are willing, and then everyone else that is instigating. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? That's what helps.
So Jose Valenzuela. Okay, so we mentioned Frank Martin. So you try to talk to Frank Martin Steamboat. It couldn't complete itself because he's fighting
Yeah.
supposed to Tank Davis. But there's nothing really on set with Tank Davis. It's not really official yet. They're in talks, but I don't know if
Mm.
he's Tank Davis will take that fight. So who
Then we'll
knows?
have to see. 'Cause I know he's gonna have to fight somebody soon. I actually thought Jose Venezuela was the one that was had the title eliminator after the fight that he just did with Chris Colbert. I actually thought he was the first person that was up to get that shot. But I guess Tank is, he could choose anyone from the list who he would want to fight. So I don't know, how it's all working up there. You know what I mean?
Okay. So here's another fighter that is also, fought just recently. That was William Zepeda. He actually fought against Maxi Hughes, which I think he's an okay fighter. British fighters are not my cup of tea, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I think it will be a much tougher test for him. Uh,
Yeah, I think so too. 'Cause I saw him fight. I didn't get to see all of the fight. I saw the clip, and from what I saw, did he stop him or it wasn't the distance?
yeah, he stopped him.
Okay, and like which round?
I think it was like round 6 or 7. I forgot. I mean,
Okay, yeah, he that'd be an interesting fight for myself too. I feel like when I look at him, Zepeda, because I give all fighters credit where I feel like credit is due. And he's definitely someone who's a tough fighter. He's definitely tough and he's strong and he's willing to, you know, I'm not saying he's a dirty fighter, but I mean when I say get dirty, I mean like he'll go through what he has to go through to win. You know what I mean? He's not afraid to take hits, but because from the fight that I saw him do that he just had, it was kind of at one point it looked like it was a kind of a lot of punches that were being traded back and forth.
yes.
And this is where I feel like it'd be interesting against my style because I'm not the type of fighter to to box like that. To be honest, you know, I rather
Yeah.
hit and not great hit.
Yeah, and you got solid power, so you got 13 knockouts. So
Yeah,
that's not good. Obviously, we want to see it at elite level, which is going to really mark
yeah,
your knockout power.
exactly. Me too. Honestly, it's funny because my record shows that I'm a puncher, and I'm not taking nothing away from myself as well. But I'm a critic in all aspects. You know what I mean? In what I see with other people, and most definitely with myself. In order for me to completely be honest with myself, and for me to keep growing as a fighter, and So some guys would be like, "Yo, you knock people out. You're a knockout puncher." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "You think so?" They're like, "Yeah," because me, I'm more, my strengths in my mind lie more always on my ability to box, and then I'll get it. I'm never really thinking about knocking someone out at all. And then, like I said, if it happens, it happens. And I guess just for me, I would have to say it's because the time that I'm touching you. You know what I mean? And like with all the boxing ability or in between punches that I'm touching you, that's causing giving me the knockout. Plus, I could punch in the sense where I have power enough to make any fighter respect me. But I feel like it's the combination of the boxing ability is what makes it more effective. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, so it's hopefully we get to see these fights, but let's say a Keyshawn Davis. How would you like that fight against Keyshawn? And how do you see Keyshawn Davis?
He's really good too. He's really good, and I feel like this is me just like I said being honest. I feel okay. Let me give you what my definition of a special fighter is. A special fighter to me is someone who's either really strong. It's like whatever attributes that a boxer could have, if they're really high in that attributes. Like Keyshawn Davis, he has good footwork and he has good boxing ability. I feel like he's a great basic boxer, meaning he knows how to defend himself. He knows how to punch. He has decent power, but in none of those area is he super is it very far. Like I don't look at Keyshawn Davis and I think of like, oh wow, he's like a Tank Davis where it's like Davis is punching, or a Devin Haney where it's like, yo, he's elusive, he's really hard to hit. You know what I mean? I look at him as someone, okay, he has very good defense and he has good power. So now for me it's more making sure I'm in shape and just like formulating the right plan. Obviously, the plan is going to adjust because you can't walk into the ring with a fixed plan, and it's formulating a plan using my own attributes to overwhelm me. You know what I mean? And to I know that I have good feet. You know what I mean? I believe some of my attributes that I have as a boxer are special attributes. You know what I mean? I am elusive. I am hard to hit, and I'm good on my feet, and I have good footwork. These are very strength. They're not just. I think they're. I believe they're above average in my opinion. To me. So for me, against a fight like Keyshawn, I'm thinking a lot of feints and a lot of footwork. You know, a page out of his book versus him and that Cuban dude.
I
When
think I
he
know.
fight
Yeah.
Cruz, Andy Cruz.
Okay, so let's talk about Andy Cruz because actually we have a Golden Era chat and we were talking about that. Um, okay, so Andy Cruz is obviously a Cuban that's coming up. He does have a sort of a name right now.
Yeah, he
Uh,
makes the division exciting in my opinion.
would you like to fight Andy Cruz?
Definitely, because as a fighter, I'm not gonna say I don't want to fight no one. I'm not gonna tell you I want to fight no one. Where my position is, I'm looking to just fight the fights that will make me become world champion.
Okay,
But to answer the question is yes, because he's someone that it's like when I look at him, I'm like, wow, like I said, special fighter in my opinion. You know what I mean? He's
right.
very he's very he's very elusive. He's hard to hit. You know what I mean? He's great on his feet. And I feel like when a guy like him, I believe I had the attributes to beat a guy like him, but I would have to focus on timing someone like him, and then catching him the right. Because it wasn't his, I don't think it was last fight, the
Okay.
fight before that. He stopped the guy and he looked good, right? He's not a crazy power puncher, but with 8-ounce gloves and someone's touching you consistently, it's gonna hurt. People always ask me that question. Oh, does it hurt? I'm like, listen, it's 8-ounce gloves. Like it hurts.
Yeah, of course.
I'm like,
Yeah.
no, everyone's punching a little bit to the point where it hurts a little bit. But I saw him boxing and he was overwhelming the guy, and maybe this is just the way he boxes.
Okay.
I have to go look at other videos to see if he did the same thing. But at one point, he was boxing, and both his body literally came straight. Like both his feet were like he was standing straight, and he was punching the guy. It's effective, and it was working for him. You know what I mean? But it's still a mistake in
Okay.
terms of like fundamental defense, being defensive. You, as a fighter, you should never be squared. You know what I mean? You never want to be squared. So I'm not. I wouldn't want to wait to try to capitalize because like he knows himself and he's really good with maneuvering his body to box. So I'm not gonna look and wait for a mistake. I'm gonna have to box and create the opening that will allow me to create the opening that puts him into position that will allow me to get the time that I need to hit him. You know what I mean? I always feel like every fighter is beatable, but it's about being able to put the fighter in that position that's necessary. Like, okay, if some guy's very weak in the ropes and like you get in the ropes and you can knock him out. I mean, in the corner, if you get him in the corner, you can win. Well, okay, well, what do you need to do to get him in the corner? You know what I mean? That's where I feel like where um, thought process and strategies play out. It's not so much the strategy to necessarily win, but have the strategy to put him in the position that's going to benefit me to get the win. You know what I mean? To hurt him. You know, when I think about boxing, um, a part of like me, like I said, I don't. It's weird. I don't think about the knockout. I think about boxing. But you ever hear old school fighters when they talk? We say we're training to hurt him. You know, we're training to hurt him.
Of
It's like
course.
that. You know what I mean? It's more so. I think like that, training to hurt him,
Right. You have
versus
to.
like I've always said, there's a difference between winning a fight and beating the opponent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to train to beat the opponent. Because if you could win and the guy could feel like, oh man, I could have done another 20 rounds,
Okay.
even though he lost. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Of
if you
course.
beat him, it's like no, there's it. And yeah, he stood up to 12 rounds, but it's like look at him. He took a beating. You know what I mean? That's because the person was executing whatever they needed to execute it in the right fashion. You know?
Okay.
So that's kind of how I want to. That's kind of how I focus on my training and focus on when I'm looking at other fighters. What is the
So
way
if
to
you
beat them, not
so if,
win?
so if you couldn't get a top fight, let's say the top five, and you
Mhm.
would have to look because I'm sure they all want to square as a world title too.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
so Andy Cruz would be an option you would take.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, like I said, me and my promoter, we're not doing anything. We're not just jumping and rushing to just fight anyone. But as
Yeah.
a fighter, yeah, for sure. You know, as long as my promoter is happy with what's going on, and we're doing it.
Okay. 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 Here's another one. What about Royman Murataya? Would you like to fight him? And he's ranked top five.
I thought honestly, I forgive me because I don't even know who he is.
Okay.
Sorry. As soon as you said that, I was like, "Oh snap!" I got. with all due respect, I'm gonna have to go look at him after this, but I don't know who he is.
He's a Latino. He's American fighter, but he's a Latino fighter, and he's one of the new prospects that are exciting in the United States, and he's ranked I think in a few divisions, like in the top five. I think it
Okay,
would be a great match for you. I think it
I'm
would be
definitely
great.
gonna take a look at him after because I don't even know. I don't think it's like either I seen him and I'm not like putting the name and what I saw together, or I actually don't know him at all for me to tell you what I think about him.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so you have to check more about him, but
Sometimes, yeah, I gotta look a bit more who's in the division. Honestly, I'm sometimes so focused on just perfecting myself. Sometimes where it's like I'm never really focused on too much on what anyone could do versus me just uh training well enough to be sure of what I could do. Because I
right,
know, like I said, with my attributes, I know that I can give any fighter in the world problems, you know? So I just want to continue to work on honing my skills and holding my skills to the point where I'm sure enough. It's like even if I didn't know nothing, because in sparring, sometimes you spar guys that you don't even know. So now it's like if you are sure of yourself and you know your skills are at the level where you believe they are, you're gonna be able to perform well, you know? So for me, it's the same thing, but just on fight night, it's this is the night that matters, of making sure all of those things are up to par so that you could do what you need to do to be victorious, you know?
well, this is another question because you're not young either. You're
Yeah,
31 at this point. Uh,
32 actually.
32. There you go.
Yeah,
So it doesn't seem like time is kind of against you at this point.
a little
Uh,
bit,
do,
yes.
do you think you're gonna have to take these fights in the next 2 years, like the big fights? Because
Absolutely, absolutely. Honestly, for two reasons. Sorry, one. Well, three reasons actually. One, because I'm not 22 years old. One, two. Um, I want to become world champ. I want to be a world champion. So, and I don't want to take a. I don't want to be world champion by not fighting someone, or not fighting the right fight. I still want to be a great. I want to be a great champion. So, being a great champion is fighting great adversity. And three, why am I in it if I'm not in it to fight the best, right? Like one thing I love about like this time that we're in about boxing, and it's the same thing. What makes me not like it is the business of it. The business, I love it because the business fighters are getting paid, and I like that. But at the same time, too, we're so focused on the business and the business of the business, where it's like a businessman, right? His whole MO is to take least risk, high reward. But a fighter, his MO, we take risks. That's what being a fighter means, is to take a risk. But when a fighter is emphasizing too much on the business aspect of things, then it's like we're never going to get certain fights because the business doesn't line up. You know what I mean? But if you're talking about a fighter, most of these guys would spar each other. You know what I mean? Most of them would get in the ring with each other. But when
right.
the business is on the line, does it make sense business wise? And then if it's a no, then it's like, well, we're gonna wait till it does. But it's like, well, now the sport is gonna start to deteriorate just a little bit because of that.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you 1 out of 10 level of difficulty, and you tell me what's your level of difficulty out of 1 out of 10. I'm gonna give you fighters, and you just give me a number. Okay. So
Okay.
all right, here we go.
I hope
Emmanuel
I know them
Navarrete.
though.
Emmanuel Navarrete. 1 out of 10. How
Who?
difficult is he? Emmanuel Navarrete, the Mexican fighter, just moved up from 130. Um,
Okay, I don't know him. Sorry.
Emmanuel Navarrete. You don't know? Okay.
Sorry.
So
Sorry.
well, not everybody watches Mexican boxing. So I mean, I keep
Yeah.
telling that to a lot of
But he's
people.
at 135 now? He's at lightweight now?
Yeah, he was the champion 130. He had the WBL, and he fought Oscar Valdez just recently.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he just beat Oscar Valdez.
Yeah, he just beat Oscar Valdez. That guy.
Okay, I'll say six.
Okay, six. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so he's a six. So for you, so that will be an easier fight for you,
Yeah.
Emmanuel Navarrete.
It was too much of a war to me and a fight
Okay.
back and forth, in their opinion.
So easy fight. Okay, here's another one. What would be okay? William Zepeda, 1 out of 10.
8.5.
8.5. So he's harder than Navarrete to beat.
Yes. Yeah. He's a real 135. And he's like I said, he when I see from him, I feel like a guy like him, he's relentless, boxing ability. I'm gonna have to hurt him. You
You're
know
gonna
what I
have
mean? I'm gonna have to hurt him, because to just box him, without hurting him is not gonna slow him down or stop him.
to.
I'm gonna
Okay,
have to hurt him,
that
to
makes
slow him
sense.
down. Yeah,
Frank Martin, 1 out of 10.
7.5.
7.5. So you're
Yeah.
ranking Cepeda higher than Martin?
Yes, because for me, I I
Right.
I feel like I've always had easier time with guys who box, because
Okay.
I'm always the more elusive out of the two. And like I was saying about Keyshawn, I don't feel like there's nothing special about him. I think he's a great southpaw, but a great basic boxer southpaw. He's
Hmm.
good speed, good power, good distance. Like he knows all of those things, that like the fundamental things he does very well. But I don't think he's super strong, and I don't think he's super elusive. I think he has decent feet. Like, there's no attribute that I can say, wow, he's known for that. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, you know what I mean? Tank is known for his power. Haney's known for his agility. He's fast, and great job. Like these certain things, I don't think there's nothing great. I think Zepeda is going to be tougher because he's someone that, like I said, Frank, I could see myself beating him, hurting him, but beating him just by boxing him too. Where William Zepeda, it's like a guy like him who's going to continue to press someone like me because I know that I will box. I have to hurt him to slow him down so that I can be 4 steps ahead of him.
Okay. Okay. Here's another one. Um, okay. So Tank Davis, 1 out of 10.
I give him a 10 still.
Give him a 10.
I give him a 10 because you know what? Out of all the guys, like, like I'm like, damn, I was telling my brother this like maybe like last week. I said, you know what? Like it sucks. I don't like to be a fan of no one in my division, but I'm a little bit of a fan of Tank. Like I like him, I like his attitude. I feel like he's a old school fighter where he's very like in his mindset. He fights to beat the person, not just win the match. He beats the people in front of him. And after seeing him fight Pitbull Cruz, I liked how he was boxing. I liked how he was able to use his feet consistently. He was on his feet, and his feet were moving fast, and he was still composing himself. And then he was letting go his hard shots when he needed to. But I only feel like he didn't knock him out because one, I think he hurt his hand, and two, um, Pitbull is smaller than Tank. Tank's not used to fighting guys smaller than him. You know what I mean? So I fought a Mexican once who was small, and it was hard to touch him because every time he would guard himself, I had to really extend myself to get around to touch him to the body. I wasn't able to land too many clean shots to the head because of how everything was just so tight and compact. So I kind of understood that fight that he did with Pitbull, and I really liked his boxing. And when I look at Tank, he's counter punched guys, and he's not a lot of his knockouts are from counter punching as well. So he has great timing between his boxing ability, his timing, his distance, and footwork. On top of the extreme power, is what makes him very dangerous, in my opinion.
Okay.
He's someone that I feel like I'd have to train in a way. I mean, no, I train. For every fighter any one of these guys that you're naming, I would have to put in extraordinary work. I would never leave no stone unturned. But I feel like Tank, he's the guy that it's like, yo, one mistake and it could be like, over. More so with Tank.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so now here, okay, so remember, I'm gonna have to do a video in Spanish on this one because this is a Spanish community, but we do these interviews in English.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so Andy Cruz, 1 out of 10, because I'm definitely gonna have to make a video about this. 1 out of 10.
I gotta give Andy a 9 still.
You got a 9?
Yeah, because I've boxed one Cuban from out here. I'm forgetting his name, and he was the first time I got in the ring with a Cuban, and we sparred, but it's like he was like he had like the mobility that Andy has, like that type of way of fighting. So it brought I'm actually part Cuban too. My father is I'm more Jamaican. Like my mother is Irish Jamaican, and my father is Jamaican Cuban. So that's where some of the finesse comes from. but the Cuban that I was sparring, he was dancing in the ring with me, and we were moving back and forth. And I was like, that was the first time I experienced that type of like level of like agility and elusiveness. So as far as Andy's concerned, it's making sure like, yo, my punches could stick. You know what I mean? Like, so that's where like I said, he's special in that aspect. He's good at not getting hit and do what he needs to do.
So you give him a 9. Okay.
More so than everyone else.
Okay, Edwin de los Santos, because he's still there. 1 out of 10.
You know what? I like those songs. I give him a 9 too.
You give him a 9? Okay.
Yeah, I like he's fast and he's strong, and I feel like when he fought Shakur, I feel like if like in life, if you stand at the edge of a very tall building, your body's gonna tell you, yo, there's danger if you take another step. It's your body's gonna go into more of a defensive mode. I feel like when Shakur fought him, that's exactly what happened. Shakur felt like if he took the risk with De Los Santos, there'd be danger. I'm not saying that he couldn't overcome it. I just felt like he felt it was too dangerous to be in there with him. So, and then after his win against Venezuela, Jose as well, I started really putting a little more respect on him.
Okay.
I like him.
So would that be a fight that you'd like to do? Because I think he's going to have a hard time finding a fight. But if he can't find a fight, you can't find a fight. Would you fight him?
Yeah, definitely. He's someone that it's like when I even look at a guy like him, he's someone like there's I think. Well, maybe him, but there's some fighters that when I think about them, I'm like, wow, a win against him will change my life too. Because again, he fought Shakur, and in my opinion, I don't think Shakur beat him. I know Shakur won, but I don't think Shakur beat him. You know what I mean? I don't think no one won, to be honest. I think it was more of a draw, but I don't think Shakur beat him. And like I said, for all the reasons why I'm giving him number 9, he's dangerous. I feel like that. So beating someone like him, I feel like would would leave me would answer a lot of questions. If anyone ever questioned me about my abilities or anything, it could if I'm for real, let's say, I feel like that would put me in the category of being for
I,
real.
be- I believe so. I believe that in fact, I think that would a lot of people would start paying attention to you if you were
Yeah, more so.
to fight him. I think that would be. I mean, that would be a great fight.
Yeah.
Okay, um, Kid Austin.
Uh, I'll say a 7.5. Not because I feel like he's actually there, but because I think there's a lot of room for him to grow as a fighter. You
Hmm.
know, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Indiana Jones, where it's like at one point like there's a scene where the guy like Indiana Jones, he's running and the guy takes out the sword and he's like doing all kinds of tricks with the sword, and then Indiana Jones just pulls out his gun and shoots him. So I feel like I feel like when I never really watch too much of Chaos's fights, but when I see him train, because I'm always seeing things on Instagram, I feel like there's just so much before you get to the point of. I feel like there's a lot happening in what you're doing, where it's like it's like he's overqualified. It's like just
Right.
just score the basket, bro. Just hit him. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of switching and switching and switching and switching and switching and switching, where it's just like,
Right.
bro,
Yeah.
just keep it. If you keep it, I think a little bit more. When professionals like even Andy Cruz, where I'm like looking forward to that too. Where it's like some fighters, it's like as they get professional, they start to refine themselves and settle down a little bit. You know what I mean? It's not so much. Less is more, is what I'm saying.
Okay. So you would fight Kid Austin?
Yeah.
Would you take that fight?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, that's a good thing. And how would you beat? I mean, do you think you could knock out Kid Austin with his style of fighting?
I believe I can knock out anyone, and absolutely, because I think I can hurt him. One, like I said, there's so much going on where it's like I feel like in a lot of what he's doing, he's gonna get look at all the headbutts he's catching. I feel like there's just sometimes either he's coming forward too much or like I don't know what it's what it was the second time after he just got in the fight getting a headbutt
Yeah,
or
I
cut
think
him.
he had a headbutt. That's correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
he,
it's the
he
second
ran, got ahead himself in the headbutt. Yeah.
it's the second time. So
Yes, it's the second
when
time.
you're doing all of that type of work in the gym on the pads or with guys who aren't at a high level, it's one thing. It's easy to kind of maintain distance and this and that because you're doing it. But when you're doing it in a real fight and in real time and someone's fighting you back, it's like your timing is off. Things are off. The only person I've seen execute um, a lot of moves and angles like that is Lomachenko. You know what I mean? For it to be fully effective. You know.
Okay, so let's go to that one. Lomachenko, 1 out of 10.
Now I'll give him an 8.
Lomachenko, an 8. Okay, I can see
I
that.
give him an 8. If I see if Loma comes back, he's fighting. Is he still fighting
Kambosos, yeah.
Kambosos? Yeah, I see him beating Kambosos. But if he, as you get older, I feel like the training has to be more refined in the sense where it's like your eating gotta be better. You gotta be sleeping a little bit. Hopefully, you're not drinking. Stay away from like negative things. When you're not older, your body's a little bit more receptive to. It doesn't heal the same way and process the same way. But if he looks like old Loma and he does what he does, I'll give that 8 back to a 9. Because I
Okay,
would look like.
okay. And I think actually with your style of boxing, you could definitely beat Lomachenko. You have the style
Yeah,
to do that. In fact, I
yeah,
don't think he's done well with that style.
yeah, rather.
Yeah. Okay. George Kambosos Jr., 1 out of 10. Let's say he beats Lomachenko. 1 out of 10. How do we rank him?
Because see, like Kambosos, what I learned, he's a real fighter, And it's like one thing you can never discredit, as much as like say there's underdogs and people are way better than some people. One thing you can never discredit as a fighter, and a lot of people don't talk about this, is the will to win. You know what I mean? A man's will to win, and I feel like Kambosos, he displayed that even in fights that he came up short against Devin Haney, he has the will to win. So I got to give him an 8.5 because I still feel like he's a basic fighter, and I feel like my style would work against him. Um, but he's never. I feel like he would never be out of the fight, no matter what he's going through. He's always going to remain in the fight, which makes him dangerous. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Shakur Stevenson.
Uh, It all depends. Like, is he coming forward to fight? Is he backing away? No, I'm playing. My twin brother sparred Shakur, and based off what he had told me, I'll give Shakur a 10 too, because um he's the type of guy where I said, see, like fighting someone like him who is a great to me. He's a see when I say the fundamentals of boxing, he's besides to some guys are just they're very good at it. He's Shakur is very great at it at fundamental boxing. You know the science of boxing. So he's someone too. When I look at him, it's like okay, I have my attributes and ability, but you can't. I don't feel like coming at. I feel like coming at Shakur Stevenson in a fundamental, traditional way is gonna not. It's gonna work against you a little bit because he's great at fundamentals. He's great at traditional boxing. So I feel like I would have to come up with a strategy that's gonna put him in the situation for me to land those. Oh snap! Sorry, hello.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
it? Okay, yeah.
No, no,
So
you're good.
okay, yeah, yeah. Put him in a place, an uncomfortable place. You know, get him uncomfortable. You know, again, which is hard, but I could like again the whole De Los Santos fight. It looks like he was uncomfortable, that he couldn't settle down to where he could be do what he does great. You know, so that's what it would be. But I give him a 10 because that's
Yeah,
very hard to do. I feel like De Los Santos style. I feel like De Los Santos is a little traditional mixed with like awkwardness, you know how he boxes, plus he has power. So I feel like that's what was making Shakur Stevenson cautious, you know, which like I said, which didn't allow him to settle down, because when he Shakur settles down, like I sparred with Jamal Herring too, and Jamal Herring, I was asking him questions about Shakur, and he was telling me, he was like he felt like he should have relaxed and not been in a rush to do things, but that just shows me that Shakur Stevenson was settled and he was relaxed, you know.
hmm.
So I give him a 10.
Okay, so you give him a 10. All
Yeah.
right, so okay, so let's say, and this is a question that I have here in the chat. Let's say you couldn't get a fight in 130. Would you think of moving to 135? Let's say you couldn't
Yeah.
make it at 135, because today the business kind of
Okay,
messes up
yeah.
everything, and we see other divisions where they're having this problem
Hmm.
where their prospects were trying to move up, but they're dangerous. Nobody wants to lose their undefeated record. That's always a
Yeah.
problem. It's not the 90s anymore. It's the
I
Floyd
know it sucks.
the Canelo May Floyd Mayweather Jr. area. It's not a good thing.
Mess up boxing, yeah.
So, would you consider moving up if you couldn't get the fights that
I
you
get that.
wanted? Or
If time was passing by to the point where it's like, okay, let's just say everything's going well. I beat, you know, some of these names that we're talking about, and I'm still unable to get a shot, then right away I would just reroute. I would probably have that conversation to reroute and push for a shot, a title shot. See the same way how Pitbull Cruz is fighting for a world title against Rolly.
yeah,
I would push for a situation like that. You know, either to go up and be a mandatory or to go up and to get a shot. You know what I mean?
well, he's I mean, he ducked everybody in 135, so he is blessed because he's
Yeah,
Latino.
he's lucky. He's lucky, and Pip. I don't see. I just like briefly on that fight. I don't see him beating Rolly. I feel like they're similar styles in the sense where they're both, like to punch. But I feel like Rolly's the bigger guy, and Rolly has better feet. Rolly has better
Okay,
boxing ability. Pitbull Cruz is too much like this.
yeah,
He's too much like that, in my opinion. Anybody with a little bit of good feet will give him trouble.
okay, so okay, so I'm gonna give it to you because I'm gonna make videos about these little short clips. You call out two fighters right now. Give me the first fighter you call out right now to fight, because in America it's all about talking and talking
Yeah,
shit.
Frank, Frank, and
So you would beat Frank. Yeah, you say you would beat Frank easily, right?
yeah, and Kambosos. If those two, let's say any two that I can get right now, I would fight those two.
Okay. And would you fight Edwin De Los Santos? That is a fight that would interest you too.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. So that's the fight. So we'll make a a little clip about that. Okay, so I guess this is my final questions, but where do you? We're starting to see. There's another fighter that's from Canada too. His name is Lucas Batty, right?
Yeah,
If I'm
good
not
friend, good. I want to say a great friend of mine, but like through boxing, good friend. We sparred many times.
okay. I think he's ranked in the top 15 or top 10 or 12, I believe,
Yeah, I
in
think he's 13 or 12 right now.
13 or 12. Okay. How do you see him with because he's representing your country, Canada? How do
Yeah.
you see him in 135?
I see. Honestly, I give a lot of respect for him. I believe he could do as great as I can, to be honest, because he's a sound boxer, and he has good timing, and he has good he has great power. You know what I mean? He's really good power. He's punching. He sits well on his punches. We're in 8 ounce gloves as a fighting as a professional. He's someone that could knock out anyone in the division, I believe. So he's definitely a big hope for Canada as well to receive a world title. He's doing
Okay.
his thing. Yeah.
And here's another question. Your brother Trevor, you know, we're like he has like 9 fights and 8 KOs or something like that.
He's 11 and 10 kills.
11, okay, 11 and 10, which is
Yeah.
power. Uh, will he be moving up in ranking soon? Because
Yeah. After his not this fight coming up, but the fight after this one should put him in the rankings.
okay, and he will be in the same division as you are, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
He's
okay,
one of the he's one out of all of the guys that I sparred. This is why I'm not really worried when it comes to guys, punching with power and dealing with guys with power. Because it's interesting. Like, I don't know if you've seen my brother, but our styles are very like the opposite. Like
yeah,
I'm moving on my feet a lot. Counter punching, picking you apart. Versus my brother, it's like he's coming forward and he's throwing those shots that are taking you out early.
right,
And he could. And he has on top of it, he has the potential to do it in one. Like you could be winning, and then all of a sudden, I mean, you could be boxing, and then all of a sudden he hits you with that shot that turns the whole tide. I feel like that's the beauty about punches. A guy can be boxing is the whole round and touching you, and pecking you, and the puncher hits you that one shot that looks like he's winning now.
right.
But all this to say, my brother, he's one of the strongest guys. You know what I mean? Like if I say that I've ever been in the ring with, because we even though we've sparred, we had sparring matches where neither of us were holding back, and he's hit me. And then, on some of those days where it's like when I go home, I'm just like, the way that I felt, I'm like, wow, like, as he starts to continue to clean himself up and progress and get better, he's gonna be a big problem as well. Like his record shows that he's a power puncher, but I don't feel like that's gonna change much even when he moves up to fight better guys, to be
Yeah,
honest.
because when the level of competition goes up, the level of chaos, if it's not real, is going to go
He
down.
go down exactly. And I feel like for him, it's like I'm not gonna say online what he needs to work on, but once he gets those all his ducks in order, it won't change. It won't. I think the KO ratio might go down just by a bit.
Okay, okay. Here's
Yeah.
another fighter. Have you ever sparred or know Steve Claggett? Claggett.
I don't know him. I know he's fighting he fights in my hometown Montreal, and he signed with the promotion over there. But I have a lot of respect for him too. He beat some decent guys from Montreal as well, but I don't know him personally.
You've seen him fight though, right? Have you seen his
Yeah,
style? Do you think he has a good chance in 130, 140? Because that's where he's ranked also.
yeah.
He's
Honestly, to me, like I said, like if you're a guy who comes forward, it's like it has to be with defense because I'm. This is my philosophy of boxing, right? Especially for guys who come forward and can punch. Their defense can't be the fact that they could punch or that they throw volume. If that's your defense, well then if the guy doesn't get knocked out or worn down, you're either going to lose the fight or get knocked out
okay.
because you're putting yourself in a situation that I've seen him leave fights where even though he won, he was pretty much a little bit marked up in some of the fights that he had. So the guys at 140, like the champions, the champions, who are the champions at 140? Teofimo Lopez. I don't think his style works against Teofimo Lopez. I don't think his style comes close to beating Devin Haney, and I don't think his style definitely fights
Subriel Matias.
Matthias. Definitely not. And his okay, maybe he could beat um Rolly. Maybe he could beat Rolly, but if he gets past Rolly, how long does he hold the belt for?
Right.
There's a lot of guys that are under there's a lot of guys that the 140 division, I feel like it's a weird division to me because there's a lot of guys that are very, dangerous and are in there that are not even mentioned. There's
Right.
still some guys coming up, like even what that guy Brandon Lee, what's he doing? There's so
Yeah.
many guys that aren't spoken about in the 140 division that are
Right.
like in that middle level too, but that are capable of becoming world champion. So
And there is another Canadian fighter. I don't know if he fights in your division or not. He's a Latino fighter. I forgot his name. I think it's Luis something. He's coming up too. He seems like a dangerous fighter too. He's undefeated.
he's from Canada.
Yeah, he's from Canada.
Uh,
Um, he's
Lewis.
maybe it's not Luis. Somebody in the chat, si alguien en el chat sabe quién es el prospecto canadiense que es latino, me lo puede poner en el chat. I forgot the name, but
Okay.
he seems like he's a 130 or 135, but he seems like he still has that pressure fighting style, but he's been
Okay.
fighting and beating different fighters. So he looks he
Who's he
looks
signed with? Is he signed to
um
any Montreal? He's signed to the Montreal promoter.
I I think he's from Montreal, to be honest.
'Cause I think I know what you're talking about. I'm just not 100% sure.
I just I think it's Santana. I think it's Luis Santana.
Okay, Louis Santana. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
we had like this weird little exhibition that he beat me on, like way back in the amateurs.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So you fought him.
yeah. Even though I fought him, both matured vastly. I was, and especially me speaking for myself, considering how my career went as a professional, we both matured since we've last saw each other. And he was a lot. I was younger than I am now, and he was a lot younger then too. You know what I mean? So, um, but for someone again, for a pressure fighter, when I look at um, when I look at him, I'm like a pressure fighter. He doesn't have that much knockouts for a guy who's supposed to come forward. It's like I always said this: if you're a guy who comes forward and you can't punch, then I feel bad for you. You better have ultimate ultra defense. Because if you're coming forward, you got to make sure you're coming forward with something.
Right.
And it's like when I see guys who could box, but they don't have speed, it's like to help to move that, and it's like their body language moves in the slick way, but they don't have the speed to back it up. It's like, I don't know, it's like there's an element missing. It's like having a car and there's something missing from stopping it from performing in the way that it's supposed to. you know so he's definitely doing his thing. He's winning his fights, but out of all Canadian fighters at 135, I'd have to say there's a fighter named Bradley Wilcox. There's my brother, and there's Lucas Body. Those are the only guys that I'm gonna say that I feel like have a good chance. One, because Luis Santana, he's never, maybe he's boxed in the States as an amateur, but I don't. This is the difference in my opinion. If you've never experienced boxing in the States for like and literally getting accustomed to the level of
Yeah.
what real boxing is, I don't care who you're fighting,
Right.
unless you're able to, or you're flying sparring partners to you. And I know that's not the case for them over there, because,
Right.
and that's a big difference too. Because one thing I love, and it's like I love about America for boxing is like in Canada, a lot of gyms. It's like a lot of gyms are fitness gyms. Like they have a lot of clients. um they're just training like a whole bunch of people, and which is not bad, because I believe everyone should learn how to box to get in shape. It's a great way to get in shape. But in America, it's like there's no classes going on. You know what I mean? Like it's all fighters. You know what I mean? It's all fighters in the gym, and especially being in Vegas, it's like on sparring days. It's like you never know who's walking in the gym, and even if it's not a guy who has a big name, or he's let's say a well known or someone,
Yeah, they're difficult.
it's still difficult. But that's
Yeah.
what prepares you, though. That's what prepares you. You know, you're used to the guy who has a fast jab. You're used to that extreme pressure. You're used to that the guy who's being tricky. So on fight night, you know what? It's like, yeah, you maybe never fought the fighter that you're facing, but you've adjusted yourself to so many different things that with all of that bottled up, you can put it together to formulate a plan to actually beat this person. But if you never experience a certain level of speed, a certain level of pressure, a certain level of boxing IQ, when you're facing it for the first time, you're just going to be left confused. To make the mental adjustments and physical and put the to demand your body to move and perform in the way that it's going to need to for you to do what you're thinking, it won't happen on fight night. So that's where America has a big difference and an edge over Canada.
Okay, I have two final questions for you. Okay, so he, I got a lot of questions, but these are the
It's okay.
two.
I like it.
We be, I know we'll be here for a minute. Okay, so um, true or fiction? Most people, um, fighters who are technical and difficult. I mean, they're like yourself, let's say.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think a lot of boxing fans, by the way, feel this way. British fighters are just a step over, just to go to the next level. They're pretty much like they're they're okay, they're good, but they're not really like when you choose a British fighter, it's really because you haven't really fought a,
An
a
American fighter.
an American fighter. Is
I,
this true or
I
false?
think I didn't fight any British fighters, but from what I when I look and observe them, I'm gonna say as a whole compared to American boxing, and then other boxing, yes, but there are obviously those special individuals that it doesn't
Right.
matter. You know what I mean? And I think British boxing is second to America, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're talking technical wise.
Technical wise, yes. Like there's see like just I would put America number one, and if anything, I would put like like the the Ukrainians, people from the Slavic, and British side by side, or actually no, sorry, America, Mexico, and then in third place tied would be like Ukraine, everyone, and then the British, or I'd even put a British just a little bit of ahead. I mean, Ukraine a little bit of ahead. They got Usyk and Lomachenko holding it down.
Okay. And this other question. Okay.
Yeah,
Um, so the same as many people who watch boxing think that a lot of the British fighters are like they're just like Canelo will choose British fighters. I mean,
yeah.
that's what he does. He feeds on British fighters. Um, is it the same thing with Mexican boxers nowadays, as far as
Um,
their level of technique in
I I I
comparison?
I think yes. It's the same, but when you get to like every like okay Mexican that I've ever honestly the only guys that I didn't knock out so far on my career were Mexicans. You know what I mean?
Okay.
What I didn't stop them on a lower level, okay, because you can get the Mexican. Who knows his situation. But every Mexican that I've ever stepped in the ring with at a high level were dangerous. I've never came in the ring with any Mexican or any Latin fighter that was fighting at a high level that was just easy for me to box. They've always given me high level work. You know what I mean? So maybe on a level where it's like okay, you're building your fighter from 1 to 10 fights, you can get that challenge, and I mean that kind of like you could build a career and he could knock him out in the first round or whatever. But on a high level, it's like a lot of these Mexicans, they've proven themselves since the beginning of boxing that they're equal to any American fighter.
Do you think their technical level though
Oh,
is
their
on a,
technical level, I don't think they're. I think the America's technical level is by far the greatest, and then I don't think the Mexican technical level is. It's almost like okay, like if you had two drawings and one was done by a master and there's so much more detail, it's almost like it's 3D, you know. And the drawing of the Mexican, it's very well done, but it's not 100% realistic compared to that drawing. Like it's not as
Mm.
fine. Like Americans, it's like down to the balance. You know what I mean? Down to the balance, down to the taking a short step, to down to the smallest thing,
Hmm.
down to the smallest thing. It you have to perfect that down to the smallest level. Where I don't think that level of detail goes into all of Mexican boxing. Like I said, I'm not speaking for the
Right.
few that are like that. I'm talking about as a whole. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. So, what do you think has more technical level? Mexico, Canada, or Puerto Rico?
Um, I don't know too much about Puerto Rico like that. I have to take Canada to Canada today. Canada maybe back in the day when Lennox Lewis and them guys were boxing. I would
Right.
say Canada. Because I know some of like the old heads in boxing that were boxing. They were phenomenal technically. So Canada definitely is last, and then I would put Mexico over Puerto Rico.
So you would put Mexico over Puerto Rico. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this was a very interesting conversation, and I got a lot of clips to do.
Yes.
So,
Where are you from, by the way? Sorry.
oh, I'm from
Where you?
United States. Yeah,
Okay.
I speak Spanish too because my
Yeah, I
dad
heard
was in the
you.
military, so he went and traveled to different countries in Europe, and he got to live in Spain, so we got to live in different places too. But yeah, I'm from United States.
Okay, 'cause when you messaged me yesterday, you're like, "Oh, you're Canadian, but you're not that talk about." I'm like, "Wow!" I'm like, "Finally, a Canadian that's recognizing me." But then when I saw your stuff, I'm like, "Wait, where is this guy from?"
No, I know a lot about boxing history, and I know a lot of the greats that Canada had. The Sam Blankfords,
Yeah,
you guys had, Jimmy McLarning, one of
yeah,
the
the Hiltons too. They were good.
the Hiltons, Lennox Lewis. I mean, you name it. You guys have had really good quality. In fact, I would say down to the 50s and down, Canada was the second best country in the world
Yeah,
when it came to
exactly,
boxing. Uh,
exactly. I
and,
think
and
it's the teachers, like the teachers for we don't have like in here when I come to the gym, I see young coaches that are inspired to be coaches and they're learning from the coaches before them. For us, it's like the platform of boxing has just gotten smaller, so much more smaller over the years. Like again, when I come into the gyms in America, it's all boxing oriented. Everyone, just the guy sitting on the chair is teaching me something that's like very knowledgeable, and I could see that him too. He's been around. So it's like that's what Canada's missing. I feel like I could once I become more champion and after my career is done, I could help, strengthen Canadian boxing. But ultimately, I would bring the certain Canadian individuals to America. You know,
right, of course, yeah,
yeah,
that's the that's the sparring
yeah,
capital of the world.
yeah.
All right. All right. So
Thank you.
Chan, where do we follow you? How do we check you out?
Okay, so Chan Thonson on Facebook, and then Chan Thonson together to find me on Instagram. So I can definitely use the support and all the following. And thank you so much. I want to give my promoter, Cedric Boswell, a big shout out. And then hopefully you guys see me April 20th.
Okay, we'll watch the fight, and thanks everybody for being here and watching this interview as well. And it's been a pleasure having you here, Chan. And we'll
Thank
be in
you.
contact after the fight and see what we can do to help you promote yourself. I like to promote fighters who
Thank
are
you.
technical, but they're not getting they're not getting the views
Recognition.
that they should.
Yeah,
So we'll try
I
to.
appreciate that.
And by the way, just to let you know, we were the channel that because you know that David Benavides. I don't know if you knew that Demetrius Andrade. He was being avoided everywhere. Nobody wanted to fight Andrade. He had a
Yeah.
really sick style. So I contact Jose Benavides, and that's how the fight started.
Oh wow. I
Yeah,
mean, hey, like I said, God works in mysterious ways. So
yeah, yeah. We just got
absolutely.
took a little things, get people pissed off, and that's when the fights are good.
Thank
He
you.
probably gets on the way. All right. Well, pleasure having you,
Take care.
Chan, and we'll see you soon. And
Absolutely.
thank you for being part of Golden Arrow. All right. Have
Bye.
yourself a good one. Later. Bye bye. All right, so lo tenéis aquí, tenemos a Chan Thonson y, es un prospecto peligroso y vamos a ver qué pasa con él. Ya vamos a hacer unos cuantos vídeos. Me gustó lo que dijo de Edwin de los Santos, eso sería una excelente pelea. También intentando hacer una pelea con Frank Moran también, iban a hacer la pelea con Frank Moran, pero Frank Moran aparentemente quiere hacerle la pelea con Gervonta Davis. Muy interesante. Y también creo que se podría hacer una con Andy Cruz también, si las cosas no van tan bien el top 5 que está. So, muy interesante entrevista y este es el primer boxeador que tenemos de Canadá. Intentaremos traer a otros prospectos peligrosos también, de Estados Unidos, Canadá y posiblemente México también aquí para hacer más entrevistas para vosotros. All right, suscribiros al mejor canal de boxeo en español e inglés. Visita nuestra página web goldenboxing.com para más información y más noticias. Echanos un vistazo también en X, estamos ahí. Y os veo en la próxima. Deuces y peace out, man.